we've got a massive train here. We've got like 10 cars in this train. Now I got to drag rig this guy up to turn 1. I don't know what's going on. There's something. Oh, there it is. Welcome back to It's Track Time. This is the Edge Addicts event out at COTA on December 14th. It's the first day of the event. It rained all morning. We didn't get any track time. There's only like a handful of cars out on track in the first couple sessions. So this is the first session where it's dried out enough that we can get out there on the track with tires like Hoosier R7s. So everyone shows up out on track, and we've got a massive train here. We've got like 10 cars in this train. Everyone in this run group should have a lap time of 2:30 or less, so these should all be very fast cars. We're right now running at a much slower pace. If you look at my Garmin, I haven't even got through the first lap yet. Everyone's trying to get warmed up and trying to pick their way through these trains. This is a massive train. This is like 10 cars in this train, and because of the lack of track time we had in the morning, this is typically, this is the first session for most people. And everyone is kind of pissed that they missed the track time in the first 2 sessions they paid for. So they're trying to make up for it here on this partially wet track. And that's just a recipe for a disaster here to happen in this session. So you really got to keep your head screwed on and not make mistakes and really pay attention to what's going on here. We're trying to pick our way through this massive train. What I should have done is pulled off and went through the pits and just avoided this whole thing. But you can see the car in front of me there. That's an identical car to the car I'm in. It's a GT3 RS with the full Dundon package, and that's Matt's car. It's his first weekend on track with this car. I wanted to stay with him and run as a tandem around the track so we could see how we do together. And so he didn't peel off out of this train, so I'm not going to peel off. I'm going to try to stay with him here. But that means we got to pick our way through this big train, and it's going to take some laps to get through this. It can be very frustrating, so people can get their tempers up and they start making some bad decisions, and the combination of that with the water on the track can make for some bad mistakes. So you can see the C8 has already moved up a couple slots here. This group is kind of breaking into 2 pieces. So you can see there's a white GT3 up ahead of us here, and then ahead of him is a GT3 RS in green. And you can see how this is kind of breaking into 2 trains now, and we're in the slow train, so we've got to get past this group. We're coming through turn 11 here. We're going to get on the back straight. That's where we should be able to pass a bunch of these cars in one shot. And so you can see in front of Matt is a GT3 RS, and it's going to move around this pink car. This pink car is a GT4 RS Club Sport, so it's the race car version of the car we're in. And now all 3 of us got around that one. And now Matt's going to try to get around this GT3 RS, and it looks like he's got the go to get around that. I unfortunately did not, so I'm going to have to sit behind this guy for a little bit longer. I know the instructor sitting in the right-hand seat of this car, so I know he's going to tell the guy to give me a point by here pretty quick. We're stuck behind another GT4 RS Club Sport. You can see Matt's on that car's tail. Okay, there's my point by to get around the GT3 RS. I'm back with Matt now. And now we got to get around this GT4 RS race car. And it still didn't give Matt a point by. So now here we come around the carousel again. And you can see we're separating again from that front part of the train. We want to stay in contact with those cars and get by those as well, but we're going to be stuck behind this car for a little bit longer. Matt still hasn't got a point by. Here's a little short straight going into 20. He should get the point by right there, and he didn't get it. So now this is getting frustrating. This is where tempers start boiling up a little bit. Matt got the point by, and now I should go around him too, and I don't get a point by. So I'm sitting here, and the guy's going 60 miles an hour on the front straight, and I just said, okay, I'm out of here. I'm going to go ahead and go. Now Matt's got a big gap on me here. I've got to make up for this. Going to have to try to catch him here in the S's. You can see the water all over the track. We've got a dry line. You got to stay on that dry line. You don't want to get out there where there's standing water and have your car break loose and slide into the wall, which is a high potential on this kind of a track surface right now. Okay, so here we go through the S's. I've got to catch up to him. You can see he's about ready to catch the green GT3 RS, And that's probably going to slow him down if he doesn't get a point by. So here we come around. We're going to go up over the top of 8 here. And as we come across 9 right here, you can see something just went wrong right there. So let's stop and rewind and take a look at what actually happened on turn 9. Okay, so if we rewind and take a look at turn 9, you can see someone's already made some bad decisions and lost control of their car going towards turn 9. The tire tracks you can see slide off the track, and they actually took probably their 2 left-hand wheels off in the mud. And then they got control of the car again and came back over the top of turn 9 and drug a whole bunch of mud and rocks onto the track. So now that's going to cause problems for the rest of us as we come around turn 9 trying to get traction, and we're having to go through mud and rocks. So there's already been an event. Someone's already made a bad decision here, and they luckily didn't go off track and they didn't go into the wall, but they definitely had a scary moment here, and it made a big mess for the rest of us. So now as we go around turn 9, we're going to have to go a little bit wider to get around that mud and rocks. And you can see from this, the rocks are all the way down the track. So not a good situation to be in at this point. Okay, so with that in mind, let's continue down through turn 10 and into turn 11. And you can see Matt has got around that green GT3 RS. Now I need to get around it as well. I come around turn 11. I've got a gap here to close. The GT3 RS up there it's got a Dundon crack pipe on it, so it sounds really nice. When you get up alongside that car and you can listen to it, it has a very, very nice sound to it. So I've still got a big gap here. I got to close it down into braking zone and then get back in contact with these two. So here I come around turn 12, and you can see that there's still a lot of water on the track coming into 13, so I got to stay on that dry line. I've now got up against the GT3 RS, and you can see the DRS on this thing still isn't working right. We've talked about this car in the past. The DRS just stays open on this car. It never closes. It doesn't even close under braking. He's not getting all the downforce that he'd like to get on track, and I need to get around him here. I'd like to get around him in the carousel or before turn 19, but I don't think it's going to happen here. And now Matt is getting slowed down by a GT3 RS, or actually a GT4 RS and the silver, and he needs to get around that car, so that's helping me out a little bit. So now here we come on to the front straight. I'm going to get right up along the back of this GT3 RS. He's trying to get around the GT4 RS. He's got the point by. I'm waiting for my point by. I've got it as well, so I'm going to follow him through. The DRS is staying open. It should be open here. Oh, there's my point by. Okay, so now I got to drag race this guy up to turn 1, and he finally released me, and you can see I was on the water there, and I lost it a little bit, but caught it going around turn 1. So now I got a pretty good sized gap to close on Matt. I don't have anyone in front of me now, so this is good. I can start trying to peel away this lap. I've got a 2:32 on the board so far, and I'm peeling away some time here. I've got a delta of almost 3 seconds, so hopefully we can get a fast lap on this one. You can still see there's a lot of water out there on track, and as we go up over the top of 8 here and into 9, here's where the rocks and mud are. I'm going to try to go a little bit wide to get around that debris on the track. Coming into 10 now and dropping down, you can see he's still holding that gap on me. I've got to close this thing down and get back in contact with him. We started with tires that were about 24 pounds of pressure. They're now, when you do that, you end up basically overpressuring eventually during that session. So we got a lot of heat coming into the tires right now. We've been out on track for several laps, and we're starting to get over 30 pounds of pressure. And when that happens, you start losing grip. I don't have a race team, so I don't have a bunch of mechanics that can dump the air in my tires when I rush in. So if I decide to go in and dump air, I've got to go in, unbuckle, get out of the car, dump the air pressure, get back in the car, rebuckle up, and then go back out. So typically I just suffer with it and try to be careful and not lose the car in these overpressure situations. And we're at that point now. So we've got a wet track. We're trying to stay on a dry line, and our tires are over pressure. It's not a good combination, but we haven't had any track time yet, so I don't want to waste this track time. So I'm going to stay out here and keep going. You can see how now I'm catching up to Matt here, and we're coming around 19, and he is going in. So his tires are over pressure. He's made the decision to go in and dump pressure. That's a brand new car for him. He's getting used to it. I'm going to stay out. I don't want to waste this good, clean track that I've got here. So I'm going to keep going and see what I can make of it. Okay, so we've got a 2:26 in the bag now. That's not a good time, but with the conditions and the train and everything we had to deal with, I'll take it. We're now going to see if we can try to peel away some additional time with the overpressured tires. Work my way through the S's here. I'm going to try to do the line where I don't brake at 3 and punch through to 4 and then brake. You can see from the flag there's no wind this morning, so we're not fighting any headwinds here like we typically do. Coming around, we're getting close now to 7, which is where I've been trying to just go up over the top with the brush of my brakes. You can see how I'm correcting slightly because of the tires breaking loose. Okay, here's the mud again. So now I'm going to try to come around wide again to stay away from the rocks and the mud, and then drop down into 10. I should get to about 137 or so here, and there's a yellow flag. So we've got a yellow flag. I don't know what's going on. There's something, oh, there it is. There's a Viper that slid off the track and is up against the wall on turn 11. So there's a very good chance that this is now going to get black flagged because he's in a bad situation. They're going to have to pull him out and get him around the wall there. We'll see if we get a black flag here at the end of the straight, and sure enough we do, the black flag. So this session's toast. Let's go back and take a look at the situation that Viper was in. So if we slide back and look at what happened with this Viper, it looks like he came around turn 11 wide. He was going in probably too hot. And it looks like he went wide and went all the way to the edge of the track on the exit of turn 11. And then the tail snapped out from underneath him and he spun a 180 and went to the outside against the wall. It looks like he didn't maybe impact the wall, but he definitely went through the gravel. So it's hard to say what actually caused him to snap like that to the right. It could have been just a lift, or he could have been, typically when they apply power there, they power slide the other way and they go to the inside wall on the left. And so the fact that he snapped around and went and flipped and went to the outside wall, I'm guessing that he was coming in too hot and he lifted and then he flipped it around and ended up in the gravel. So it looks like he's okay, but that's the end of our session. So now people are going to be even more frustrated because now they didn't get any of the morning sessions. And now they finally got one session that was partially dry, and then it got cut prematurely because of the accident here. So now people are going to be even more desperate going into the next session. And so let's take a look at that one. Okay, so here we are in the next session. The track is a lot drier. Everyone was very excited that we could lay down some good times finally. For the first time that day, we come out on track. You can see from my Garmin, we have not even warmed up yet. This is like the first lap. We already had some heat in the tires from that prior session, so I'm not at 24 pounds of pressure. I've got the tire pressures about where I want them. So now we just have to get some heat in the car and in the brakes, and then we can start rolling and trying to get some decent lap times here. So once again, Matt's in front of me. He's in an identical car to mine. We want to stay together as a tandem. We're already backed up in this small train here with the GT3 RS in the front and then a Camaro sandwiched in between us. So we need to get around these two cars. They're not giving any point buys. That's not that uncommon when you're warming up, and it doesn't really irritate people too much, but we'd like to get some speed and get some heat in our brakes. So we'd like to get some decent lap times here to get things warmed up. So here we come onto the front straight. This is typically where we're going to get the passes, and he's going to try to get around this Camaro here. He's accelerating. He's going to slide out to the left and let him know that he wants to get by. I'm sitting right behind him. I want to slide by him. You can see he just got his tires wet, so there is some standing water. He gets around the Camaro. I don't get a pass. There's my pass. I come up. He's got brakes because the GT2 RS is sitting there, and he's not running. And I'm like, what the heck is going on now? And then we come around, and there's another black flag. So here we are on the next session. Everyone's desperate for some track time, and we didn't even get any heat in our brakes, and already someone has caused some kind of an accident. We don't know what it is yet. Maybe it's somewhere else on the track, and maybe we're not going to even see it. So everyone chills down. We got to cool off now and come in. If it's not that severe and it's just someone off in the gravel, they can probably pull them out, and we can probably go back out and use some of this track time. We don't know yet. There was a black flag there on turn 15, and we come around 16, and there's a yellow. So that says that the accident's right in front of us. So here we come around the carousel. We don't know if it's at 18 or 19, but there's something in front of us here, and there you can see it. So it looks like a McLaren that bounced off of the wall, and there's debris going all the way down the track into turn 19. So that's going to be a big cleanup, and it's probably the end of the session for us. It looks like the guy's okay. He's standing off on the side. So let's rewind and take a look at the tire tracks on this one. So we rewind back to where we could see his tire tracks. It looks like there's two distinct sets of tracks. There's the rear wheel tracks, and then there's the front wheel tracks. And so you can see how they're separated here. They're very dark, and so I'm kind of questioning whether the ABS system was actually on or if it was dialed back. Looking at how dark those were, it kind of looks to me like he was turning off all the stability control systems, and that dialed back the ABS systems. When I read about the McLarens, it sounds like you can dial back the ABS. And so given how dark those marks are, and the fact that the car is facing forward, because you can see two distinct lines for all the tires, it wasn't like he was going completely sideways. His nose was pointing towards the wall, and you can see where it impacted the wall there. So it sure seems like the ABS system was dialed back on this car, and it looks like he was coming around, and then he probably lifted, and the back end came out, and then he hammered the brakes, and then he went right into the wall, ricocheted off the wall, and then went down towards turn 19. So he probably impacted the wall in a couple spots there. And you can see all the new Armco along there, so there's been a lot of impact points there. The one that we always fear is sliding to the outside there and going through the gravel, which you can see the track's kind of set up to slow you down if you go to the outside because you've got all this pressure. But what typically happens is you get all this pressure on your tires, and then they break, and then you slide back to the right. And so I've known several people that have done exactly this, where the tires break and then they slide back to the inside, which there's not a lot of runoff, and there's no tech barrier there. You can see there's tech barrier on the left, but on the right it's Armco. So you're going to bounce off the wall and do a lot of damage to your car. And you can see this car took a big impact there. The driver was okay, so that's great. The car looks like it's probably a total loss. So once again, people were, turning up the pressure on themselves, trying to make up for lost time, and they're trying to get really good lap times when the track finally got dry. And it just was not the right time to be pushing the car yet. So when I first started driving on the track, everyone told me that the most dangerous sessions were the ones at the end of the weekend when you're tired and you're trying to push for a personal best, and you're just fatigued, and you go out and you make some bad decisions and you wreck cars. That's what everyone told me, but when I actually started running on the track and started putting down some weekends and watching what happens, I typically saw more wrecks, and I personally have wrecked in the morning sessions on the first day. You come in, you think that you're not rusty, but the fact of the matter is you haven't driven in a month or 2 months in between, track events. You come out, you want to run hard, you want to push hard in the morning when it's cooler, and you make bad decisions and you end up going into the wall. I had that happen to me where you get out there and you start passing a few cars and you think you're bulletproof, and you start pushing really hard on that first morning session, and you shouldn't be, because you really aren't that good with the steering wheel and the inputs yet. and you end up making a mistake and into the wall you go. So whenever I get that energy building up in me where I want to push really hard in the morning session, I always dial it back and calm down and just say, just get through this morning session, get the car back in the garage, and then let's work at this and build up to it as you get into the afternoon. And when you get in like in these 2 sessions here where you get the combination of that, plus you had some rain on the track, you lost some track time, people are trying to make up for that lost track time, and they start pushing really hard. They haven't had any track time yet in the weekend, and they start making bad decisions, and then wham, you can see how this kind of built up from someone going off the track and getting in the mud, and then someone sliding through the rocks, and then ultimately ended up with someone going into the wall and creaming a car out. So dial it back on the first day, dial it back on the morning sessions. Just try to get out there, get warmed up, get your body flowing again, get your mind and everything back in tune with the inputs, and then start pushing. And you can see this didn't work out well for a few drivers, and hopefully everyone learns from this and comes out in the next weekend, takes it easy in the morning sessions, and then work your way up from there. Hopefully everyone will stay safe, and we'll see you out at the track next time.